Welcome to this week's
Justin,
episode of Marijuana. Look, I have to do the pause or else
you do it
it
all
looks
the
funny.
time, but I feel
That's
like
right.
you're
I do it
doing
on
it. You're
purpose.
like
I've
spite
cultivated,
pausing.
called
You're
it, cultivated the pause.
you are spite pausing. You know it bothers me. You know my ADHD and my OCD is like combining. And when you pause, I see red.
But do I?
Shut up. Shut
Welcome
up.
to
Okay,
this
you just
week's
ruined the
episode
intro for this wonderful show.
of
We have good.
Marijuana Wind with yours truly, Dr. Justin Davis, and the veritable priestess of Delphi, my co-host, Cynthia Brewer.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good one, isn't it?
did you write it down?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I knew you
absolutely.
did. You're trying to get better because we called you out for using repeat adjectives to
That was
describe your.
embarrassing. That was
I
embarrassing.
know.
Sure
I was
was.
embarrassed for you. Like our
Of course,
show, the
nobody would
ratings
have
went
actually
down.
known that because they would have had to go back and really listen to every episode.
We
And
had two
so
different
thanks for
listeners
that, Cynthia.
call you out for it besides myself.
Were they in the United States?
No, Denmark. Denmark called you out. You're
Oh.
the Dutch called you out.
You know why? Because they had to go and look up the word in the dictionary, and that's why they remembered it.
No, it's because you think they're your homies and they're like, we don't even know her. Like, Justin, who is she? Anyways, like, I'm kidding. The Dens didn't, the Dutch, the Denmarkians did not call you out,
Wait,
dude. You're
wait,
fine.
Dutch is like Amsterdam and Holland
What do
and
you call Denmark? People from Denmark?
Danish.
Danish. Oh, I totally know that too. Oh man, my this is embarrassing for all of us. But let's I'm going to do the intro today because I did so much homework on our guest today that I feel like I know him, not in the biblical sense, but like I know him. Like we're homies and we're tight. So
Very musical name, by the way. But even though you haven't said it, I'm just like a kind of giving a little bit a teaser.
for the people watching on YouTube, they're going to see him right here being so polite and quiet the whole time. But okay, everyone, today we've got Jeffrey Trappe. He's the director of training and development for Planet 13, Las Vegas based MSO, and also hold the title for the world's largest dispensary. And I've seen it when I went out for MJ Biz, and it's freaking phenomenal. Went to college in Tallahassee, one of our most favorite hated towns. Served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, service industry from Tallahassee to my hometown of Seattle, Washington, and been working in cannabis for a while now. We've got Jeffrey Trappe. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Does
And
anyone actually say Jeffrey besides your mother though, or is it Jeff
It's
Trapp?
Jeff, because yeah,
J Dog.
definitely my mother yelling at me.
Does she call you by your middle name, like Jeffrey Blank, like
Oh
that?
yeah, she does go Jeffrey David, and then that's how I know it really hit the fan.
That's a good one.
And then she says, "Shut your."
Jeffrey David. So we're so excited to have you on the show. And I'm going to tell you a few things. When researching you, if you put in your name, there are 3 things that come up. You, okay. And then also, fantastic, great. Okay. Second person is a tax advice podcast with Jeffrey Trappe. I know. Let's see if we can get you on. I'll pull some strings with our people and their people, and you're going to be giving tax advice and tax planning advice, financial planning with Jeffrey Trappe. And then the third one is a climate change expert who thinks that like tornadoes are a cause of because of climate change. More tornadoes because of climate change. Are you any of them?
I would be the first one. The climate change and the tax, I would not be suited to give advice on either of those.
I was kind of hoping he did all of it.
I mean, it is possible that there's more tornadoes now, right?
Yeah, it's
Climate
just.
change.
Have you ever Googled yourself, Justin?
I try not to.
Try not to lie on the show.
No, I really try not to.
Okay, so I've Googled myself before, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But the very first Cynthia Brewer that comes up is a cartographer.
Mm-hmm.
What is a cartographer, Justin?
They make maps.
She makes motherfucking maps, okay? And she wrote a book, and apparently she made a map that was like helping the landscape and all this like mountainous area. And so she just wrote another book. So she still comes up as number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I can't compete with map making.
No, you can't.
Shit.
Can't compete with that.
I can't win. Does anybody else come up for Justin Davis, Dr. Justin Davis?
I think isn't there a football player, Justin
No, there's
Davis?
probably a gynecologist out there. Just saying. All right. So Jeffrey, David, whatever we want to say. How are you doing? How is it working for Planet 13? You just entered the Florida market, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We've been operating and kind of expanding, putting our footprint down in Florida right now. Working for Planet 13, it's been an eventful journey, to say the least. I've started with a lot of mom and pop, maybe some mid-sized operators. And just like anything within the industry, when it's gone medical and then to adult use, kind of have your trials and tribulations. But with Planet, I've been able to see what some of the West Coast states have done and how to, in the best way, circumvent some of the pitfalls that a lot of the states have, especially, to name a few, Oregon and California. Those are really big, like, hey, let's learn from this and let's not repeat the cycle. So
How did they F it up?
How did we F it up in Florida? I just want to know, like, if you could summarize the Florida medical program in one word, what would that word be?
Huh.
I would say 3 words. I'd be like, wah, wah, wah. That's mine. Now your answer.
For me, I just think it was a little bit more restricted to kind of let some really good operators possibly jump in earlier. Whereas Oregon, in my experience, they allowed everybody to jump in, and that you gotta have to find that sweet spot, right? When you let everybody come in, I mean, when I left Oregon, the price for cannabis dropped down from 1,100 to 1,300 a pound to less than 250 a pound. So
Yeah.
for a consumer,
We love it. Thank you.
yeah. When you're talking about small business owners and operators trying to, really come in this as their dream, they really got hit with a harsh reality that they probably won't make their light bill or be able to pay their staff. And very quickly, it was kind of, let's sell out our license before we lose our shirt. And so that was really
What
hard to
about
watch.
California, though? You're in California. Same.
We are also in California, and I'm actually from California. California, I think, had a lot of opportunities. It's just overtaxation is just kind of the way I can really distill that one down. There's a tax on a tax. There's a county tax. There's a state tax. I get it. We want to tax, but for a consumer, when it's overly taxed, and it makes more sense to go to the legacy market as opposed to an adult use store.
What means a legacy market, gentlemen?
I like that euphemism.
I love it.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, the consumers, they still have access to it. So why would they want to go and pay 30% tax on what they're going to buy? So exactly. I think California had good intentions. I want to say, again, I want to be optimistic about a lot of this. I think they had good intentions. The execution could have been done a little bit different.
I love your positive attitude because I tend to be a cynical C word sometimes. Creative lady, or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, we've had people on the show before that really tried to go legit. They tried to legitimize the cannabis growing in California, tried to, come out of the dark into the light, whatever. But it just was not really friendly to those types of people that were trying to be on the up and up. And so what did they do? They went back to black.
Legacy.
And that is working. It's working for them because they tried their hardest. And then at the end of the day, you can't really compete, but you definitely can if you're black market versus illicit, or illicit versus legal, I guess you could say. But alternative market, whatever you want to call it, like, legacy. Yeah, it's never going anywhere. We all know this. Legacy. I know. I gotta start using that. Like, that's really gold right there.
I created my own reverb there.
I know you really did. This is a great show. Okay, so I love the fact that you did the travel like I did, like from Seattle, Tallahassee, like you couldn't get farther away. But I didn't intentionally do that. But you worked for a smaller group called Canna West up in Seattle, right? And then Desert Bloom. So you got some of those like boutique grow experience, and then you went for like big MSO vertically integrated company. Mm-hmm. Like, how was that kind of transition for you?
It was, and just like anything, each kind of area of those have been very insightful for me. working with in West Seattle. I was fortunate to work for an owner and operator who had actually been pivotal for the medical market going into adult use, and really had the drive and conviction for passion for patients. And when you kind of see somebody in that space, you really want to like learn a lot. And that's where West Seattle was really good for me, because I got into the cannabis industry while I was in the hospitality industry. Honestly, I was doing I was helping with a friend doing kind of a legacy home grow in Florida. And
In
it was
Florida.
yeah, and of all places. And that really kind of got me into it. And when I lost my 9th friend to PTSD, they ended up taking their life. I kind of just stopped, and I was like, I need to do something that has more value than, well, the nightlife was great. And you kind of get that camaraderie within hospitality and the nightlife. It just felt empty. It felt empty that, if I'm still here, what can I do to make a better tomorrow for some of my friends? They got to the point where I almost scaredly got back on Facebook to see where some of my friends were. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what, I can't even get on Facebook right now. Mentally, I'm not ready to face another friend. And unfortunately, I lost another friend. I found out 4 months ago to his battle with PTSD. And for me, that just made me change on a dime. And I had to learn.
Is this stemming from being a Marine?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is not only PTSD. A few of them had TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. A few were overprescribed opiates from the VA. And then there's a lot of, when you get out of such a rigorous world like that, coming out and not having the support that you once had in a whole new world, especially when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, when your whole identity was that transition is hard for a lot of people. And you can see it when someone who's made 20, 30 years in the industry, when they leave that, it's all they know. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, where hospitality brought me in with open arms, because it's like a little family there.
Yeah.
Some people don't find that, and some people end up going back to their hometown, and they left for a reason. And for me, I left for a reason too. That's why I never really went back. But for me, I had to change everything that I was doing to, I kind of connected the dots. I was like, when I use cannabis, it's working out. And again, this was 2015, 2016. I didn't really know the science behind it, but I knew it worked for me. And so I left the country kind of completely, just kind of get my bearings back on me and really figure out what I wanted to do. I went back to Seattle and California to kind of just figure out where I wanted to go with my life. And I went back to the hospitality industry, but I already kind of knew I was stepping out of that realm. And unfortunately, cannabis came up, and that's when California, a few of my friends were working with their own commune grow. And then Oregon kind of came up, and that's right when the industry was booming. It was brand new. And I wanted to learn everything about that, from patient success stories, how it was helping, the science. I landed a sales job, which really, I was brokering for, anywhere from 10 to 15 small businesses, whether they're cultivators, edibles, or extractions. And I took over Portland to the coast, to Seaside, Astoria. And that really learning still in those early days really kind of kept me going. And then understanding people's success with cannabis, it just drove a passion for me, because I truly believe, and I think this is a big statement to say, but I believe if the accessibility to cannabis was there for my friends as an alternative, some of them might still be here. And I truly believe it.
It's brave to say that. It's really brave to say that. I mean, because you're a Marine, you'll always be a Marine, right? So, and combat veterans and people that struggle the most but benefit the most are people that pretty much don't really have, they have opiates just, free through the VA. You can have, here, take what you want. You can't have cannabis covered. And then you come back, and that transition from that type of lifestyle back into what we consider, normal life is very, very difficult. And if you go back to that setting that you escaped from, yes, they do struggle. Veterans struggle, and they are the number one most vulnerable, groups of people that need our help, especially in cannabis. So hearing your story, it's like a success story because you could see different parts of your life that needed adjusting, that maybe could have gone to a darker side, and you addressed it immediately. And then obviously, I mean, I can sympathize with the whole like service industry family thing. It's so much fun. And, like having that, it's like a second family. You celebrate birthdays, you get drunk, people start dating each other, and then like everyone lives together. And like, it's a lot. It's like a family, just like you had when you were like in the service, like it's a brotherhood. But I feel like going into cannabis, because you and I started about the same time, you're too busy to feel much.
Yep.
Is the thing that you are being inundated with an excessive amount of information, people, you're trying to make connections while regulations are changing and laws are changing and rules and people in the landscape. You don't really have time to like do or feel much. It's like almost you just kind of go vanilla or numb. I erased Facebook before I started in the cannabis industry because I didn't feel like that was something, there was going to be too much judgment and stuff. But like you did the same thing. You had to detach and be almost unsocial media and just dive right in head first. I'm so proud of you for saying what you just said. I think that's a really brave thing. But also I like your story because it's familiar and it's something I think all of us can kind of like relate to, but you made it out. And that's the best part. And you're in a great position with a good company, which I kind of want to talk about a little bit. So you do, I want to touch on your volunteer work that you do with the Heroic Hearts Project. I almost said it backwards.
Yes.
And you actually volunteer with a lot of veterans groups. Is that your way of just, kind of contributing and giving back to those that may benefit? Or
Yeah, 100%. For me, it was an outlet to be of service for something bigger. While again, I come believing in plant medicine, and plant medicine's introduction was cannabis for me, and it has grown as I've learned more and educated myself. Because the first couple of years, I dove in to learn because a lot more people had experience and understanding of what cannabis was. Some people were talking about terpenes, monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, minor cannabinoids, major cannabinoids. So I became a student, and then cannabis blended in with other holistic alternatives. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. I, went and tried my own experiments on what would work
like
outside
peyote?
of cannabis. Yeah, I have had experience with that. Yes. Just again, to kind of see what else was an alternative for me. And that's when I found out about the Heroic Hearts Project that was sponsoring veterans to go to retreats outside of the United States. Because again, it's still very taboo depending on what state you're in. That really got me engulfed with the education on other alternative treatments. And then just for veterans and kind of helping out, it is a way for me to kind of give back, because I believe, if I was in certain spots that were kind of my rock bottom, there could be chances that I may not be here. And there were people that felt for me. There was community there for me. And that's why I also empathize when people find themselves there, when they feel like they're all alone. That's where people make those decisions that you can't come back from. And I know what it feels like wanting someone to reach out for you, or feeling that someone ever even just like take a moment to wonder how I'm doing, or just ask how I'm doing. Like that made me really want to get more involved, because there's a lot of people hoping that someone understands what they're going through, but they're afraid to ask, hey, do you feel this way too? Or am I all alone experiencing this? And that for me was what being more vocal about my story kind of was able to bring a light for other people, that you don't need to really suffer in silence. And there may be another option for you, whether it's cannabis, whether it's plant medicine. And I think being more vocal about that has had, at least I have helped sponsor people start that own relationship, whether it's with cannabis or whether it's with anything else that may be a better alternative, to be completely honest.
Do you think it was therapeutic for you too, volunteering? Like, you can say you were donating your time to help them, but do you think it was beneficial to your wellness plan?
Yeah, I think one of the core tenets and kind of really feeling like you're making a difference is being of service of something bigger than yourself. You kind of,
Mhm.
again, I did a lot of studying of like religions and all these other things. And there's a common thread of being part of something bigger. And again, I'm not a religious person. I would put myself as a spiritual person, but I
I
mean,
knew you were going to say that. That's like what most of the girls that Justin used to date would say the same thing. They're like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. That's why I don't have a job and I do yoga at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And
yeah,
I
where
don't
were you
wear
born
shoes.
and what was your date and time? And I'm just going to do some tests real quick.
He's like, I can't help you pay for the bills, but I can read you your horoscope. And my dress is made out of wheat and I have my own film. I'm sorry. No, I'm not trying to undermine anything you just said.
Harsh.
I'm just trying to make fun of Justin. But I do
Where-
like the whole like discovery part and like, looking into, it's almost like you kind of came face to face with immortality, and then you kind of investigated further what that meant to you after you got home and then decided to give back to the community that helped bring you home too. So that's really admirable. What were you going to say, Justin?
I had so many things to say. I mean,
Oh, I know. I just can't wait.
remember that line in Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts where they're like, something about saving you, and she's like, saved you right back. That's what
It was
brought that to
something
mind
so
when-
bad. It was like one of the worst lines in the movie. Like something about
Okay.
the prince and the princess, and she's in the tower, and he went to save her, and she saved her. Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's a
look
really
at you with
shitty
all the little
line.
beats, though. You knew.
I thought you were going to do the one with the box. So
I
whatever.
want to, Jeff. What are some of the other plant medicines that you were referring to more specifically?
Yeah. So again,
Aloe.
you have you have other states that are, decriminalizing psilocybin, or at least, and one thing about Oregon, they actually are allowing psilocybin to be manufactured, to be purchased as well.
Oregon's really down. They're like that cool parent that's like, do whatever you want. Just don't hurt
Be safe,
anybody.
honey.
They just,
Yes,
they just decriminalized everything. Like,
Yes.
you can't, it's not legal. It's just like, they're not going to put you in jail and give you 3 square, like they're just like, have fun, just be good. Don't hurt anyone. Love
so
Oregon.
psilocybin is one. A documentary that got me into ayahuasca was From Shock to Awe, which is a great documentary regarding veterans that have TBI or PTSD,
Mhm.
utilize ayahuasca to kind of make amends or work through some of that. So I have experience with ayahuasca as well, peyote, and then I'm just also learning of other alternatives. I think that's the biggest thing, is like what is out there and what can help other people. I
And
believe.
what can we do to hang out together while we go on these spiritual journeys? Because the peyote ayahuasca journey, like, I don't know where you find your shaman or like your guide, or if it's going to be like one of Justin's exes or something with like the dress and the wheat, but I am ready to explore the caverns of my mind and like figure out some stuff.
Are any of these groups seeing success with DMT?
That you
Yes.
always ask about DMT, don't you?
Yeah, it's a
Justin
very-
is jonesing to
very-
try some DMT.
Very interesting drug, medicine, whatever you want to call it. That
Isn't it a disassociative?
yes and no. I mean, it's
If
the
I'm
thing with
wrong,
it-
like if there's somebody who is and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm fine with it. If there's someone that is like overly emotional, they are feeling way too much of something, depression, sadness,
that's ketamine.
right. No, I'm not done yet. If they were to take DMT, it eliminates all of that excess over emotions, because it makes you almost void of all emotions, which is something like, for me, I don't want to feel nothing. I want to feel something weird. Yeah. Like I want a journey and
I
an
don't think that's
experience.
how. No, I don't think that's how most people would describe it.
Okay. I wish we could have Joe Rogan on to tell us about his DMT trips. And
Yeah.
I can share a little insight, because ayahuasca is a prolonged DMT trip. It's not like what most people talk about, the quick up in the air and then you're kind of down. Ayahuasca will kind of work within the system, because you're mixing 2 biological plants that create a chemical of DMT. And I can only speak from again, what I've learned in my own personal experience, but it's not so much a disassociative. It's more of revisiting your source of trauma and looking at it from a different lens. I can say I've had a few experiences where I've been reliving a traumatic experience to the T, but from a third person's perspective, which means I no longer see it from my point of view, and I'm watching it like a movie, if you will, and I'm just watching what is exactly happening. And when you kind of relive that, and it's kind of also a basis in some therapy, you go back to a traumatic point in your life and try to rewrite the emotions that are tied to it. And for me, I've had that happen I'd say a handful of times, where something that was so prevalent, whether it's pain, hurt, trauma, revisiting it, because again, most people don't want to revisit it. They don't want to.
That's my biggest fear, is that
it's hard.
There's something somewhere in this big, beautiful brain of mine that like I put it there because like it needed to go somewhere. And like I don't think about it, I don't remember it, but then you go and you give Cynthia some peyote or some ayahuasca tea, and then all of a sudden I go digging into areas that I don't think I should be, excavating.
Well, that's why it
per
has
se.
to be done carefully in a controlled environment, maybe with someone there that can guide
But what
you.
if I put it there for a reason?
You
Because
did, because it
to
was too much to
handle or
handle.
to deal with it would be very
But
traumatic.
that doesn't mean it's not affecting you, is the thing. Even if it's
I
in the
know.
background, it might be there affecting you on a daily basis.
But are you going to see, like, is there a beginning, middle, and end? Is there a discover the trauma and then accidentally come out of it and you're like, oh shit, like this is going to be bad? Or is it like discover the trauma, accept the trauma, deal with it, and then by the time the trip is over, you feel like sound and centered?
Well, I would love to say that it is the latter, but it is not. Again, at least in my experience, my very first time with it was, I can equate it to a highlight reel of my lowest moments in my life. And I felt the gambit of every emotion, from grief, sorrow, sadness, acceptance, happiness. But you're right. It basically shakes up everything that you may have forgotten, not wanted to experience. And it kind of brings it back to the surface. And it's, a lot of people think it's gonna, one done, you're good. It essentially just shakes everything that you need to start some of the work on with yourself, whether it's forgiveness, acceptance. And again, speaking solely from exclusively from my journey, that's what it did. It showed me exactly what I didn't want to see, what I compartmentalized, what I repressed, what I didn't want to talk about anymore. And it said, hey, no, you don't want to see this, but
hey, remember all that shitty stuff that happened? Here,
well, it's
we're gonna play it on.
It's funny that you say it, because my first time, I remember I was right in the middle of it, and I had just came like right back into where I was, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And in my head, I was like, well, this is what you asked for. So
Yeah, there's no takesies backsies that you can't like just undo it. Like some people say, you can take CBD if you get too high. Like if you drink ayahuasca tea, you're gonna carry it to fruition. Or
just like
suckling some shaman as he rocks you, and then that you're gonna be that guy. Justin's gonna be that guy. Mm-hmm. So I love that you've kind of explored different types of therapy. And I think more people should be encouraged to do that, even if they didn't serve our country and go through some trauma like you did. I think, we definitely put things in places to survive and to, cope with different scenarios. And discovering that it's very difficult to think about that myself is like really scary, especially like if you can't, there's no like reset button once you get it started. So I think I'll wait a little bit longer, but you'll be the one I call. I love the veterans volunteer stuff that you do. Now let's talk the Florida section of Planet 13. You've obviously been with the company, for a while, and so you're starting to see them kind of East Coast it. And we know, and I want to apologize for Florida.
And you're the director of training and development. Is that your official title?
Correct.
Okay. And what does that mean as far as Planet 13 goes?
So currently right now, what I help do is either open or external locations. Like I spearheaded opening up our Orange County store. Currently right now, I'm working on creating more robust training for not only our staff, anyone that works within our organization, so they can understand what the ethos, what we look for when we have patient interaction. The biggest thing for us that kind of separates us from a lot of stores is our education. Honestly, if you're not on the cutting edge of what cannabis education is about, and you're still kind of perpetuating misinformation, or I hear it a lot depending on what state I go to. I heard this from my father's cousin who was a grower this one time, right? So we really like to be on the forefront of what's brand new in cannabis. We like to educate not only ourselves, but also the patients and the guests that come in, because at the end of the day, if you're talking a verbiage or a vernacular to a guest that doesn't understand what you're talking about, they'll be like, I've had somebody go, terpene, what? I've never heard of a terpene before. And you got to really kind of break that down to like, why should they care? Why does it matter? And for me, that's the biggest point. If you can educate somebody on cannabis, especially if they've been a generational smoker, that's a win, because then they can start to do their own research on why is it important to do full panel testing for heavy metals, microbials, start talking about pesticides, CBD, THC content, ratioed products. That's a big win for us. And then currently right now, I'm helping with our Florida team, our Chicago team, on just kind of getting out that, not only that training, that standardized operating process, and then just kind of keeping us not only compliant within that state, but also safe as an organization. It is key to be safe. Unfortunately, about a year ago, we heard about the very first fatality within cannabis, and that's an eye opener. This industry has a lot to give, a lot of healing, but if we're not taking care of the people that are operating and they're not safe, then I feel like we're taking 2 steps backwards. So another proponent for us is to make sure that our staff are not only educated, trained, but also safe within their operations, whether that's cultivation, manufacturing, or retail spaces.
Yeah, you have the largest dispensary in the world, documented and recorded by the appropriate agencies. And some have been talking about it as if it was the Apple store of the weed industry. And now the reason, and this is a compliment, please don't take this as anything but that, because the way that people talk about it is, I didn't get to go in it, but I did have a cab driver try to take me to a different dispensary, like off the beaten path. I think I do count that as being abducted a little bit.
Sounds like Thailand.
You what?
Sounds like Thailand.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I went to
Thailand
for like a thing. Let's not talk about it. I go to Thailand. No, but there's your location in Nevada features 74 registers, personal shoppers. So this is the Apple-like experience they were talking about, that very boutique, like one-on-one communication with people. Robots making medicine, or in that market, just, weed infused items, but in Florida, obviously medicine. 40,000 square feet of retail shopping.
That's
now,
cool.
knowing that the Florida market is only currently medical, I do see that in some interviews, your co-CEO, Larry, let me get this right. Scheffler.
Yeah.
Okay. Is definitely kind of gearing the talks about your company towards an adult use market, and also went as far as to be quoted in one interview as they've got up to 14 stores being opened in 2 years here in Florida, a super store that they've already been scouting on the water in Miami, which to me positions you guys for an adult use market. Is the rollout for Florida primarily focused around the adult use market? Because all of your other locations are in markets that have both medical and adult use, and you can have that kind of retail experience, that Apple store experience, whereas medical specific, you cannot really do all that fun stuff. Did you come to Florida because of the adult use and the patient count, knowing that eventually it's going to happen and you guys would be positioned perfectly?
Well, I think just like any market, once it goes medical, you also have to come with the inevitable truth that adult use is going to come. And so that's one of the biggest things, is we thrive ourselves on creating quality and consistent cannabis products. The heart and soul of Planet 13 is our VP of operations. His name is Chris Wren, and he started as a legacy grower for years and years. He's won an international Cannagraphics Grower Cup. He has been very, very vigilant about what products we put on our shelves and what we position ourselves. And that's really the ethos. And that's where we start. When you're talking about quality products, quality medicine, you can then add the experience on top of that. But if you have a subpar product and you have as some people would call it, not the best cannabis or boof, if you will, you can't really add anything onto that. So anything within the cannabis space starts with quality product. And that's where we really wanted to get into Florida, because we believe we have really good product. We have really good practices. We have a good ethos, and that we can also help bring the normalization of cannabis when it doesn't eventually go adult use, but also being able to give a different experience. The Apple Store is comparable because it's a non-linear floor concept, but that's it. Other than that, most shops have you line up in a line and then they ask you what you want. We really like to go forward and educate again on why they like a certain strain, why they like a certain product. Is it THC?
That's pretty compatible with medical. That
right.
aspect,
That's what I was thinking too, is like the fact that you spend so much importance on the education with something that seems to me like a company that's medically focused, not so much adult use, but seeing these big stores that they open, they're like an amusement park for only cool people that smoke weed. And I love it. Like there's something like you could be self-motivating in your travel throughout it. You could have you could ask for help and have a personal shopper. You can just go and look. There's not a pressure. The procedural structure of buying weed in a medical market is very like, you're almost like still looking over your shoulder. I got really weirded out at a dispensary yesterday because there was a cop car in the parking lot and I was buying weed legally. And I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it still kind of weirded me out. And I'm like, okay, do I have my card? Okay, this hooker in the trunk. No, okay, I'm good. So then I can move on. But there's still like that weird, every dispensary in adult use markets or not, the procedural functions of your activity there are so like scripted that it's almost like you don't want to veer off. But your establishment makes it so like, it's okay. Like we're all cool here. If you need us, ask us for help. Look at all these robots making weed gummies and stuff. Like, all this extra stuff there. It's almost like an attraction. And
that's the two-prong approach to it almost, right? Where some people, and again, I come from a patient advocate standpoint. It is a lot for a lot of people. Them coming to a large dispensary can be overwhelming.
I'm a lot for a lot of people. I freaking love it. Don't ever change.
But what it does is it allows, when you see someone post a picture at one of our locations, like a superstore, which we have one in Las Vegas and one in Orange County, when you see that and someone is posting it on Facebook or Instagram, it starts a conversation of, where is this? What's Planet 13?
We aren't allowed to take pictures. You can't.
And again, we encourage that. We love that. And again, we have to abide by state, but it starts the conversation of, you're in a cannabis store. Like I've had people go, I don't even want to step in. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even look about it. I've had a few friends from Texas. I said, come on in the store. I'll give you a tour. And they looked at me like I was
They're like, are you out of your goddamn mind? Like trying to get me arrested?
Is it a policy that you can't take pictures in Florida?
No, it's not just Florida. I've been to adult use markets where they don't want you to bring your phone out because they don't want their stock to be exposed on the internet. They don't want you posting. People like not trying, but like, they don't want you making TikToks at a dispensary.
That's a company like policy though.
No, this is actually every single time I've ever bought weed, black market, real, like in the dispensary, no one wants you to bring out your camera. Like I try to do that with like your Derek drug dealer and be like, hey, can we make a TikTok real fast? He's probably not gonna be down, but that's how all of these dispensaries are in adult use markets and medical markets. They want it to be very procedural and structured, and you shouldn't be having fun. Planet 13, they're like, we want you to do this, like hashtag us, like whatever you got to do. We want people to see that it doesn't have to be so like,
I mean, especially in an adult use market, that seems like a great idea.
I bought weed in Vegas and it was very like, get in line, like figure out what you want. Don't ask us a lot of questions.
Like the soup Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. Like the soup Nazi. And then, they were like, hey, if you come here, you can get a free joint. And then you get there and you're like, but besides the free joint, your weed's really crappy and you don't have like anything else. So it's weird to see someone open about wanting your patients or your like you say guests because you used to be in the service industry, so you say guests a lot. I totally get that, but like wanting your guests to have an experience where they can just relax, like everybody just can be chill about it. If you want to take a video, take a video. If you need questions, we're over there. Like it's very relaxing. Plus, one compliment I want to make sure I do give you is you guys have the most diverse and the most like interesting niche products. So, and what I mean by that is your medicine genetics that I hope that you'll be bringing out to Florida. You will make different types of products like leaf and vine, which is more of like, to me, kind of like a bougie little like boutique-y kind of hipster douchebag kind of thing. And then you've got like trendy, which is more like for, you know, those who want all the swag and they want to deck themselves out and Planet 13, like flat brim hats backwards. And then you've got perk, you know, and you've got haha. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So you have all of these little like brands within the brand that kind of cater towards different types of users, whether that be the casual user, the frequent like user that's going to wear decked out swag and Planet 13 and they're going to be making those TikToks in your bathroom, to like the more kind of upper crust that wants to feel like they've got something that's not only, you know, bougie, but also like discreet. So that's a big compliment to you guys because we don't have anyone else in this market or most of the markets that actually think about things like that, that your users can be anywhere from like, you know, 21 to 99. And, you know, you do cater to every type of patient or guest, whatever, what have you. So I think that's a really good thing. And that's a huge compliment to you guys.
Has Planet 13, you know, because you talked about in Nevada, California, you really, one of your specialties is producing consistent high quality products. Coming to Florida, it's like you have to start over again in many respects. And you're also dealing with a tremendously different climate. Has that been a challenge for you guys to learn how to bring your skills over to Florida and reproduce what you were doing out west?
Yeah, because we're horrible here. How have you had to adapt to Florida?
And again, it's just kind of the biological, you know, climate. You have to understand that what may work in a desert may not work in Florida. And it's just kind of trying out. And again, one of our core ethos is trying to figure out, we don't have problems, we have puzzles. Well, if this is not working, all right, let's take another approach and figure out how we can continue to make this better. You know, Florida does have its own kind of obstacles when it comes to manufacturing and cultivation.
Yes.
It's like any state. And if anyone has expanded out or has been a craft grower in one state to another, or a different medium or a different outdoor, indoor, you know, greenhouse, light depth, like it has its own little nuances. And a good operator or cultivator would figure out what's working, what's not working. And currently right now, that's what we're working with not only our internal staff, but also getting expertise and external people that want to join on to our Florida team who have also had experience with growing in Florida as well. So we're also not only trying to say, hey, this may work on the West Coast. We want to find people that are also passionate on Florida and then bring the powers that may be and bring the best product within that state. And that's the way you have to operate. You know, I know a lot of people try to take a model that works in one state, and I can tell this time and time again, we've seen it from a lot of companies. They'll go, well, this worked here and we're going to replicate it. You have to curate to the market, to the medical patients, to the guests, and hit what they need. Yes, it may work on the West Coast, it may work in another state, but what does this state need and how do we curate that? And that's what we're constantly looking for, not only within regulations, but also in product consistency and how we deliver that as well. Because Florida is
a nightmare.
It is
backwards.
Do you do
backwoods
indoor, outdoor, hybrid of indoor, outdoor growing?
Well, they've got a 32 acres in Ocala, Justin. They're just south of you. So like they're like right there. And they've got the original facility. You guys have like planned out Port Orange, Ocala, Jacksonville, Tampa for your dispensaries. But like you haven't got to build your like brand structure. You know, you're using the building that like you acquired in the deal and all of that stuff and the land and all that, but you're like jonesing to build out your like structure, like your company's bread and butter and your pride. And I know that the regulatory side of it is very difficult because everything has to be approved and it's got to go through all these channels. We're sorry. If you need help, call me. I'll be happy to help you. And all of that. I can't wait to see what happens when you finally get to put your, all of the steel that you've been accumulating over there and build your structure and build your grow the way that you want to. And then you get hit with that Florida humidity and everything gets fucked up. I can't wait for that for you because I'm going to be there to help you.
I'm only 30 minutes away, so I'm waiting for my invite to come.
No, he's right
see.
though. He's 100% right. There's people all of the time, MSOs that come out here and they say, well, we tested this in a different state and it was a 35%. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but in this state, that's Reggie. You grew a bunch of Reggie, and I'm sorry, but in this state, it's a 12%. And it doesn't make us the favorite in the lab space, but you have 3 separate climates in Florida that you have to keep in mind. And you are in a subtropical climate where your grow is. And so the air is so thick, you can chew it. And that humidity will affect your drying and curing time. But people don't want to be patient. You guys are taking your time. That's something to be like proud of for sure. Because
if anything, if you rush products to market, you're kind of, again, tripping yourself up. And I think that's where, if you look back historically for a lot of adult use medical operators that may have operated at a capacity and maybe smaller now, they try to do too much too quickly without refining what made them good. And that's the biggest thing is, if you're just going on a complete land grab to acquire these cultivations, these locations, these retails without making them good and getting them to a level where then you want to expand, it's what we're trying to do to make sure that, again, if you can stand on consistency and quality products, then you can build from there. But if you're already at a deficit with trying to have product that may be subpar or may not be what the market wants, because working in 5 different states, medical and adult use, the market will always dictate what they want and the price point. So you can't fight the market. You can try to impose your will on the market, but they're not going to budge at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people try to say, well, we're going to put this in the market and this is what people want. This is what the patients want. And then they realize, why is it not selling? Why is it just sitting there? Well, the market
why would a market, like Floridian patients need something different than other states' patients?
Well, the very first thing that comes in operationally is it's hard because everything that's sold at a dispensary has to be created by that dispensary's entity. Right. So you could be a really good operator, but what if you're a subpar cultivator, right? So now you have your starting biomass, everything that stems from that, whether it's an edible, a concentrate, your starting material may not be the best starting point. So for us, if you're gonna have to have your own single source of truth, that starting point needs to be grade A, so you can have fire in, fire out, right? You have good concentrate, good edibles. And I think that's where, at least speaking, and again, I came down from our Canadelic that just happened, I think a couple months ago down in Miami, talking to some patients. They want quality, consistent products that is safe for them to consume. And they know that, all right, this is good product. It makes me feel like I don't have to worry about what these growers were using, or did they do anything different? Did they remediate it with something that may not be, healthy for me? And so for us, transparency, education, making sure that our products are tested, and then having the patients understand, and then having that information accessible to them, I think that's key. And I believe in any medical market, that's what the patients want to know. What are
You're
they
going to be transparent with your test results in Florida?
Why would you not be? Sooner or later,
Nobody is.
Come to life.
Nobody is. So I'm going to share, I'm going to F you up with some knowledge here on the Florida market, not just because of the laboratory space, but because Justin and I, obviously, we helped as much. I mean, we tried. That's like Florida's slogan. Like, we tried, and so with the program, drafting the language and trying to help by putting patient first as the bottom lines. It's like, no matter what, Justin has always been about the patients. My laboratory, as we've always been, patients are the bottom lines. Doesn't make us the favorite with any MSO, obviously, but the patients deserve better in Florida. 100%. I'm a patient. I've seen some shit from the laboratory's perspective and also from the patient perspective. And although people may claim to be transparent, that there's no mandatory transparency yet. It will be coming. And then people like that patient you spoke to at Canadelic, they're going to start to see that safety net they thought they had with the mild transparency that they were given on a one-page document, it wasn't actually truth. And it wasn't actually super safe. And they were medicating with something they did not know what was inside of it. And that's going to be really hard because we're going to have to sit back and say, I freaking told you so, like we tried really hard to make this a mandatory type thing, but that we got, fought tooth and nail, not from anyone else besides the growers. Those are the people who don't want transparency, and they won. And so the regulations will change here shortly, but it's very odd to hear that your company wants to show the patient the documentation that proves legitimacy of your product, because everyone in the state right now, except for maybe one or two, will do whatever it takes to keep that out of the hands of the public.
Well, and for me, kind of watching how the West Coast has developed and working with some really good growers, really good, like heart and soul craft growers, watching some of the patients, like transparency, anyone that's trying to hide that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to come to light. And I think a lot of people try to hide behind some legislation, some regulations, but anyone that's trying to withhold that, sooner or later, it's going to come out. You can try to kind of let it drag, but product consistency and quality is going to be in the forefront of everything. I mean, we can talk about VapeGate that happened pre-COVID. Everyone wanted to know what they were consuming. And that was huge for me. I was like, yes, everyone should ask where their COAs are, what this product is made with, what are the ingredients, because that's the right for a consumer and especially a patient. And I think anyone that is a cultivator that's saying, hey, I don't know if we should talk about this, that's a huge red flag for me. Anyone that says, hey, I don't want to talk about the COAs or how we grow, that's automatically going, okay, what are we doing here? Like, why would we not want to talk about this?
Oh, there's plenty they don't want to. And for good reason. They're not just arbitrarily saying, we're going to keep this for the patient. They know what they're hiding, and they know how to look strategically transparent enough to not have more questions.
Well, let me ask you this, Cynthia, though, on this topic. If a dispensary in Florida provides an easy to get COA, and we're looking at it as a physician, as a patient, is it a COA that we can trust if they're transparently showing it?
Okay, so there's a few things wrong with that statement. So one, in a couple of months, the regulations that the OMMU put down will be in effect. That will be regulations regarding packaging and labeling, testing, and transparency. It will be mandatory. It used to be may show patients the COAs. Now it's going to be must provide COAs. So that may versus must has been an argument that we've been fighting, but the OMMU really wants patients to have access to that documentation. Even though they keep getting pushback, they finally got the must. So COAs will have to be available to every patient. It doesn't say it has to be a full 7-page COA. It could be a marketing friendly COA because some things can be a little lost in translation. A patient friendly COA does not mean it's bad. It just means if there's a little bit of lead under the action limit, a little bit of ethanol from extraction under the action level, they don't want to scare patients. So we do a marketing friendly, first page is a summary.
Right.
Everything
so it says heavy metals passed.
Everything passed. Yes.
Right.
And then you don't have to really dive too deep into it and worry about being exploited. So that's actually perfectly fine. The issue is there are laboratories out there, in this market, because it's an oversaturated lab market. And so you've got 22 licenses, 18 of them are producing medicine, and there's 12 laboratories. So they got to get their piece of the pie. And technically, you can say that some of them have been up to no good. Obviously, you can see it on the internet. It wasn't my lab. My lab will never get a fine or a notice or embarrass our clients. No, you can't always trust what's on the COA, but the OMMU labs department has
Mhm.
already been holding those labs accountable since summer of last year, fining them for correcting to dry weight to enhance potency to gain business, fining them for using the wrong technology that they weren't approved to use so that they could potentially pass actual failures, legitimately trying to like fool patients into thinking that they're taking something that's safe for them by helping pass medicine that shouldn't be passed. They've caught people 8 different times. There's been 8 different fines issued, and you can pull a public records request. I'm not going to facilitate that for the colleagues that I have to work with because we have to work with them. But at the end of the day, like, it's about the company you keep. If you work with a shady ass lab and that lab gets busted for like faking data, inflating or manipulating potency or any other data, everything that you tested is up for scrutiny,
Mhm.
everything. And so, you have all these options, go and vet them, but just like patients, you have all of these options. Just because there's something on every corner does not mean that's the safest or the best option. Just because they give you the sickest discounts, okay, on non-420 holidays does not mean that they are the safest option. Like, if they're making you jump through hoops to get a damn COA, I would say they're probably not wanting you to get that document for a reason. So hearing that his company is very open to immediately sharing that with the patients is so weird to me, because I volunteer as tribute to teach patients how to read a COA so that they know what they're looking at and they can feel comfort in that, because otherwise it's just like visual vanilla. Here's a
Just calling you a
here's a-
breath of fresh air, Jeff.
well, it is. It's really nice to think about it. I just I know it takes a while to get set up in the market, especially in Florida, and scaling ruins cannabis, right? And so you guys have the luxury of taking your time, and you have, and that's awesome. But I don't want to wait any longer. I want you guys to start making stuff, because patients deserve better. And I hope I would really, unbiased, of course, I hope, and I think you guys are that better, I just don't want to wait too much longer. But your co-CEO, Larry, did say that like keeping an eye on the adult use market is what you're really kind of focused on. So if we have to wait till 2024, then we'll wait. But it looks like Trulieve might be able to get it passed, like they're already at obviously Trulieve's ballot initiative to get adult use on the 2024 ballot is in Supreme Court review currently and still being reviewed by the Supreme Court. But they're at 600, hold on, where did I put it? Yeah, so they're at 635,000 signatures.
Wow. So they're actually pretty close.
Yeah.
They only need what, 800 and something thousand.
891,500.
I mean, that's a lot, but if they've already done.
Did I not tell you they were probably stockpiling signatures? Just to kind of make people think for a second that it might not happen. And then they're like, boom, 635K. That means they are almost to the amount they need to get on the 2024 ballot, which I think is totally going to happen, which means your adult use market will be here like before you know it. So
By middle of 2025 in reality though, right?
Well, 2024, and then 6 months later, it'll go into effect. Yes.
Well,
So
I can tell, anything that's, public knowledge is the time is us to make sure that we're doing it right. I mean, currently right
Yes.
now, the waiting doesn't help us. We've already invested what we have invested in Florida. So the waiting isn't anything that is something we're super jazzed about. It's whether you want to keep quality products, consistency. Sometimes it is something from the state, whether it's zoning, whether it's the things that just can't be pushed along. For us, waiting any longer is we've already invested in the Florida market. Us not going to market is it's only going to make us kind of at a deficit when we're really trying to get out there, but we're trying to do it smart as well. You don't want to rush through it, but I can tell you our Florida team has been working night and day with not only county, but also our entities to make sure that we can get things as expedited without, again, stepping or crossing or missing a step, that we want to make sure that we're starting from a really good foundation. So I want you to know that we're trying to get to market as soon as possible.
I would love to meet them and help you with that process. A wink. Okay. I told you I wasn't going to pitch you on the show. I'm
But
just
you guys
winking like
spent,
Popeye.
you guys spent like what, 55 million just to get the license, right?
That is correct. Yes.
But the license that they got was
Mhm.
purchased for 2.1 billion with a B. They got it at a discount.
Well, yeah, that's not exactly
I'm
the
just
whole
saying, like,
story of it, though.
no, it is. Like, it's 2.1
No,
billion.
because Trulieve purchased it nationwide,
Yes.
but they couldn't hold 2 licenses
No.
in Florida. So they sold the Florida portion.
Right. But there is another company in Florida that has 2 licenses, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm just saying.
Why get into that shit?
No, I'm not getting into
shit.
that shit. First of all, we got to cover one thing, and that's the Tallahassee. We absolutely love everything. I love everything you have to say. It's probably problematic for me because now you've got my trust and you've got my, like, I'm like a huge champion now for you guys. So like, I'm going to go and just like pop into the Ocala facility and take some donuts and some like burgers and make them fall in love with me. And then that way I can work and support and promote the wonderful company that you are working for, because I do believe that Florida is going to really, really love the change of pace. And they're really going to like, you know, being patient, focused, because I don't think we've had that in our lives ever, history of ever. So it's going to be awesome. To cover the Tallahassee time, because we did expire our entire hour on this wonderful individual, Jeffrey, but it looks like we got the hemp bill, which is all over the place. I'm not even going to touch on it because it's too confusing for my own good. No movement on the applicants for MMTC license, no movement on employee protections, no movement on the Rusan pig for license. The only movement that we have is for you, Dr. Davis. So excited. Telemedicine, telehealth is going to probably be approved. SB 344, HB 387. One is in the House, moving through telehealth channels onto the House floor. And the other one, the Senate bill, is in Appropriations Committee on Health and Human Services. It looks like it's going to be the only canna bill that
there is a lot of back and forth on that, though, even at this
good
moment.
back and forth, and it's going to just get worse because when the Senate and the House go head to head, it's going to be.
Here's what I think is good about it. The good thing is that patients need to have telemedicine at this point. You know, they don't, it's every 7 months they need a renewal. If they've been doing it for a while, they've met.
And it has to be with your original physician.
Right? It has to be with you. That's a good rule. That's a great rule.
Yeah.
And which you had to see in person. I'm all for that. That's a great idea to keep it like that. The problem is that they've tied it to the punitive measure that the OMMU can take against physicians who don't follow the rules. Now, you think that that's a good idea, right? It sounds good. They should be able to punish them. There's a twofold problem with that.
What?
Number one, the main problem is that I've read the bill, and yes, I actually read the bill.
Both of them?
And it doesn't say anything in regard to how they would determine that. And so essentially they're like making this rule saying, oh, you can punish people and strip away their livelihood. And, you know, they've done all this work to become licensed, but there's no due process that's mentioned.
First of all, I think what they're talking about is in the event there's people that are doing telehealth without the initial examination by the original physician, they can catch them in a heartbeat, because I don't think these telehealth meetings are going to be private. You will have to record them, I would think. Right?
I think that, well, I don't know if that's true, because it's
so if you had your little nurse's
I don't think you can
assistant
record it necessarily.
Well, then how are they going to prove that you're doing it the right way unless you have a paper trail or a video trail?
But that's not the point. The point is that even how do you decide if somebody's guilty or not? So if they decide,
guilty people will just be guilty, Justin. You know that you're a good physician.
Because it's not just for, even though you're thinking what the legislators are thinking, that, oh, it's for telehealth. If someone obviously does that, you know, then we punish them. But actually it says that believe me, there's a lot of little minutia that physicians have to do and document, like about 15 different things for every single time.
Right. But you're worried that those who are bad actors are not going to be caught?
No, I'm not worried about that.
And what are you worried about?
I'm worried that the OMMU who has a history, the DOH has a history of deciding if someone is innocent or guilty before, they decide it, and it may or may not be supported by facts. They're not going to have any oversight anymore, that they're the judge, jury, and
Oh, you're
executioner all
worried
in
about
one.
that?
Yeah, I
You're
think that's
worried.
problematic.
That's odd that you're saying that it's
Yeah,
coming from you. That's
it's
very odd because
it's
you've been scrutinized by the department for no reason,
exactly.
and we've talked about
And
this on the show.
had there not been any due process,
Right.
they would have fucked me up
Yeah.
because they felt like it. Thank God that it actually had to go be for other people.
Right.
And there was due process, and they saw that it was ridiculous.
I don't think you have
Right.
to worry, but like what I think is, I think
Mhm.
all of those fly-by-night doctors that were like, I know people that are patients that legit in the great town of Gainesville was able to get in and out with a brand new physician in less than 4 minutes without seeing a doctor, and they got their patient card at a discount for $70.
Very problematic.
That's
And
bullshit because
yeah, it's
the
problematic.
doctor wasn't even there.
But
So
here's the other problem then. This takes me to number 2, is that there's not that many doctors that are doing that. There's a few, but the
right.
problem is that these are not individual doctors that own practices like myself.
They're physician
Maybe
groups.
here and there, but they're groups, right? They go in, like a Vera Heal is famous for this, who interestingly is sponsoring this. They go in and they hire a physician, often who has like 20 licenses in 20 different states. And so sure, that individual doctor might get banned for 2 years for practicing in Florida, but Vera Hill gets no punishment, or these other MSOs get no punishment,
right.
And they just hire another doctor.
Right.
And so that's
sacrificial lamb.
It's really not going to do much good, and it's going to empower the DOH in a way that maybe they shouldn't be empowered without due process.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it with that because it's a valid point, and I do see the concerns. I really thought you were taking it from the aspect of like, we got to get those bad actors in trouble, but you're not. You do want the process to be fair. And that's so weird that I'm agreeing with you on this, but I'm going to agree. You're right. Justin Davis is right. Go ahead and clock
I hope
that.
this is being recorded.
Our producer, Taylor and Ty, like, go ahead and clock it. The day.
Don't edit that part out, please.
No, edit it out. And yeah, just put like a bleeping sound. No, this was great. Jeffrey, we are really happy that you were able, Jeffrey David, like whatever we want to call you. We're happy you were able to come on. We love the stuff that you're doing with veterans. If there's anything that we can do to help support your work, even outside of Planet 13, let us know. If there's events that you host or that you want people to donate or be a part of, we can always add that into the description and kind of link everything together. Any way we can support you in those groups, we would love to, because we love our veterans more than we love most people. So, and we're welcome to Florida, by the way. Welcome to your nightmare. Your blood pressure is going to be so high. I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's treatment for that.
Yeah, he's a doctor. So if you're ever out this way, stop by. I'll be chilling at your grow until you start operations.
And I'm only about half an hour, 45 minutes from Ocala, depending where you are in Ocala.
Exactly.
It's true.
Well, I'll make sure I'll reach out next time I'm in Florida.
Okay. Well, we will make sure that we put updates for all the listeners that want to know when Planet 13 will be available in the Florida market. This is Cynthia Brewer signing off for the Marijuana Mind. We will talk to you next week. And my wonderful co-host of all time, he who is never wrong.
No, never wrong. Dr. J. Davis.
J. Nasty.
J. Dog Davis. Keeping it lean, keeping it green as always. It's great. I can do this with my mic. It's like to my mic here.
Yeah, no, it's getting really sexy. It's good stuff. I'm gonna stop.
I had a cousin. He had a band. They were called the Reverb Motherfuckers. True story. I swear.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad we're in.
I had a T-shirt. that I had it on it that I would wear in like 8th grade or something. I love that T-shirt. I wonder what happened to that.